This video is brought to you by me. I want to let you all know that I'm posting on a side channel now called Hiding in Private, with bad jokes, hauls, news, scripted content, and anything that I don't think would fit on this channel, but that I still think has a reason to exist. If you're interested, please take the link in the card at the top of the screen or down in the description, and subscribe to it. Maybe check out a few videos or leave a comment telling me what you think. Now, with this video, the idea actually came from another channel called Entertain the Elk, where he talks about various TV shows and either the day they were born or the day they died, which is an overdramatic way of essentially saying, when's the moment that the show finally hit its stride or the moment that they lost it. Unfortunately, they don't make anime content, so I wanted to put together my own thoughts and take this in my own hands. Attack on Titan, one of the most critically acclaimed and recognized anime, and one that, since its manga ending earlier this year, has been the source of constant debate. It's no doubtably left a huge impact on the global anime market, and in a weird twist of logic was maybe the reason that it took me so many years to finally check it out, as I essentially binged the whole series anime and manga up till I caught up at chapter 132, ending 2020 last year. And so, other than reading those last 7 chapters month to month until it ended, I feel like I had a pretty balanced perspective on the show, which made discussion videos and dated reviews even more fun looking at what everyone's thoughts were as things were going on. In the past, it seemed like there was a sentiment that Attack on Titan was boring or falling off around Season 2. Seeing Glass Reflections' now 4-year-old video on the second season was bizarre and interesting. It made sense though. After a huge hiatus between Season 1 and 2, despite me loving it as a character-building romp, in the grand scheme of things, I could see how people at the time would feel this way. I don't think that people at this point who like or liked Attack on Titan would cite Season 2 as the turning point, however. I was also made aware of various cuts and changes, especially in regards to Season 3 after going through the series. LowArt made some brilliant manga anime comparison videos that really jumped into the trimming and rearranging of various parts of the Coup, for example, of the fake king starting in Season 3, and how drastically some important sequences were cut. Still, it seemed like most everyone remained excited, hyped up, and hopeful come to the end of Season 3, as the characters finally looked over the waters with the changed perspective and knowledge that they had been given, ending that season. Attack on Titan wore the face of an apocalyptic action fantasy, but it was always, for myself and others I presume, about that underlying mystery. There's been a lot of debate on how much was thought out from the start and how much was made up along the way, but I really don't think any of that matters. What matters in regards to the story is if the things connect in a way that rests within believability and the pre-established logic of the world. What matters is it feels like it makes sense, while still managing to catch you off guard and surprise you. And so many moments, while not always perfectly lining up, started to do that for me around this time. The chance encounter of the way that the royal blood and the founding titan interact, being foreshadowed in such a bizarre, crazy moment as when Eren powerlessly yelled moments after being powerless to a tragedy, was so satisfying, and was the sort of thing that made rewatching and rereading so much more satisfying. I love that, when a piece of media isn't just exciting to revisit, but where revisiting actively retools your context of the actions in the story in exciting ways you can pick up on. Marco's death was another fantastic moment the series came back to, and by the point the final act was in motion, most of those questions hanging over the viewer's head, in my view, had been answered fantastically. I talked to a friend who isn't a huge anime guy, isn't involved with YouTube, TikTok, or Twitter discussions, doesn't really look up anything in regards to series he watches or reads, and I was surprised to learn that he dropped the series after the time jump in the manga, the point that Season 4 essentially starts with. Now, I will say, Season 4, due to the studio change and known production issues, caused a lot of controversy for the season. While some people say they liked the art style departure that was more close to the original style that Isayama had managed to cultivate in his art over the years making the manga, the unbelievably detailed uniforms at times made things hard to animate properly, and from the overworking combined with the time cuts, it led to some scenes originally planned for 2D animation to be done almost purely with 3D CGI that a lot of fans were upset with. Attack on Titan was no stranger already to bad CGI, but a lot of fans were upset with the frequency in Season 4. Still, I think in the middle of what was probably the height of these arguments, we got what I think is still one of the many great episodes from the series that I remember rewatching multiple times with friends to see their reactions. Episode 66, Assault, was an entertaining, brutal, morally conflicting onslaught with that perfect ambiguous tension between catharsis and quandary that I think has defined Attack on Titan. Next is, to my knowledge, a segment that manga readers were pretty dry about as it came out. For nearly a year, manga readers were drip-fed these intense inner workings that took place building up and preparing Eren's assault on Marley after it had actually happened. A swath of characters we only met at the end of the attack on Marley were now retroactively given in-depth backstories that, aside from a few set pieces, left a fairly action and suspense-free area of the story. Going into an exposition section, having already seen the climax of what it built to and its conclusion, I think was taken two major ways. One was people thought it was an extremely slow-paced and tedious info dump for things we already knew the important parts of. And the second type of person was extremely satisfied with the in-depth explanation of the cogs that led to such a major change that we saw. I think the biggest qualm that I have with this part of the story is Eren becoming more distant. Like, I know it was intentional, but we don't have great context for his mindset, being with him nearly non-stop until Marley, and then having such huge sections of time cut, as well as much of the time we had explained being ambiguous and not focused on Eren's inner thoughts. It leads, on one hand, to a positive curiosity and mystery for what has changed Eren and what he's thinking, and on the other hand makes us feel very distant from the story, not understanding how he changed or how he's thinking like that. To be honest, there has been much debate I've seen from this point of Marley onward, and I'm sure that everyone has their own nuanced opinions on where they think Attack on Titan died, or if they think it ever did at all. And I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts below. I just ask that you try not to be too vitriolic to others in the comments, as I have seen extremely heated arguments form. At least for me, I don't think that Attack on Titan died at this point or before. In fact, my favorite moment in the entire manga is still yet to come, and I think justifies any of the slowness in this part of the story. At this point, it's unadapted, so I'll give a spoiler for the manga from this point onward, and also ask you to leave a like and a comment again for support on this video. Before I get into that, the anime had one more episode that I thought was handled brilliantly at this point, an episode I admittedly was not super excited for the week before when watching week to week. Once I watched how it was adapted, I was blown away. For me, that's episode 70, Deceiver, which primarily happens due to the girl that Sasha saved in Season 2, and her interactions with Mia and Ben. Ah yes, classic Mia and Ben. Talks on generational revenge and the baselessness of racism, the validity of scars, overcoming hatred that seems rational, overcoming manipulation of groupthink, and the fact that Gabby is so insufferable and cold for much of this episode makes the debate that starts to sink in and make her finally start to reconsider the things that she was raised to believe honestly great. This could have been such a heavy-handed, dry conversation where Gabby realizes she's wrong or whatever. This could have been a one-sided, just get over it, you're wrong, shallow depiction of this nuanced struggle. Or they could have made Gabby into this shallow, evil character. But it sidestepped any of these cheap ways out and managed to reincorporate dramatic irony involving Sasha as well, making it feel like an essential and set-up moment of the series, as far back as Season 2. Great moment. Of course, at this point we also have other things coming into works, the wine and the second coup, but while I find this part of the story entertaining, I still consider this to be the build-up when I read through it. Now, the part I want to talk about, I actually haven't seen a lot of people crap on, but I know that there'll be someone. You can maliciously steal art and take credit for it, and some people will still be like, yeah, but they didn't mean it, it was an accident. I mean, have you seen how many weird middle-aged housewives try to get married to serial killers in prison? No matter how good or bad, right or wrong something is, there will always be people doing the unthinkable. Now, I'm not actually saying that not liking this chapter is unthinkable. I don't hate you if you dislike it. Disliking it isn't nearly as bad as the two examples I gave. But man, I just love this chapter, or rather a couple of chapters, because it takes a while to get through it all. From the moment that Zeke touches Aaron's head to his awakening as this horrific force of nature, that whole area inside with the mirror, that hits me. And, you know, I'm starting to realize that this is dangerously close to me just talking about these couple of chapters forever, so I'm just gonna cut it here and say, if you feel me, you feel me. But even if you don't, and you want me to elaborate, a bunch of why, specifically chapter 120 through the end of 122, are some of my favorite moments in media, period, then let me know in the comments, or leave a like, and maybe I'll make a video on it. After this is really where things hit a funny place. I think things had good momentum and payoffs, and I felt like it was leading toward a truly epic finale. Really, this whole last section was being structured in a way that would land on its finale, which, well, if you weren't on Twitter whenever the final chapter was accessible to everyone, let me just say, I am happy for you. There were people writing 2-page essays for their Reddit gold after like 12 hours, explaining why they hated every part of the ending. Personally, I was like, chill, let's give it some time to simmer, give it a few days, think it through. Then additional pages were added in the coming months, fan endings. It took me a while, but personally, I don't think that Attack on Titan quite struck its landing. Don't hate me, always happy to hear things out, but I can't deny that chapter 139 felt a little, I don't know, much. It felt like a lot of what we needed was brushed over, and a lot of the new stuff that didn't really add a lot was given space, but the real debate is, where did it die? Like I said, those final chapters rapidly changed and added things, and I remember every month there would be some badly translated, leaked, spiteful Japanese synopsis of the chapter before the chapter was even out. It felt like people were dying to tear Attack on Titan apart every time any new info trickled in each month. Maybe this was a long-time experience as a monthly Attack on Titan manga reader, but for me, only reading month to month for the last 10 chapters, the amount of jumping the gun honestly made me shy to ever cover the series again. So, let me just come out and say it. Where do I think Attack on Titan died? Where did it drop the ball? Well, there was really one final moment that I felt was perfectly in line with the themes and messages of Attack on Titan as a story, that wrapped up everything that the story led towards. And I'll admit, it's probably later than a lot of people who consider the series to have died at some point think it is. For me, that was the death of Zeke. Armin's conversation with him as an old man building his sandcastle. It's hard to think, but we have to remember Zeke still wasn't that old. He's like, what, in his mid to late 20s? 29 at the oldest in the series, I think? He's younger than Giguk and PewDiePie, and younger than your parents probably were when you were a teenager, or are if you still are. But being inside Ymir's realm had aged him decades upon decades due to the difference between the spiritual and the literal realm. All that time alone, while in the real world only lasting a little bit more, the obscured passage of time, all alone in the founding Titan, giving him time to think, and for what reason to live. Armin's metaphor with how the leaf looked like a baseball and so forth, the focus on this central truth that none of those characters wanted to be thrust into the realities they were, but had to survive and flourish, put behind these most central parts of being human and living. Some of my favorite panels in the manga come here, like Armin stating that these trivial moments might actually be precious. Other moments, like all the previous incarnations of the Titans, might be cheesy for other people, and really those aren't the parts that I come back to this chapter for. But I think Zeke coming to terms with the things that he had always held dear, but realizing he's caused too much hurt to end it there, and looking out at the expanse of the sky, waiting to die, as he feels is just. When he utters one of my favorite lines that summarize some of the chapter perfectly while waiting to be served its justice. It feels like the message of Attack on Titan is being beautifully swept up in the wind. What a beautiful day it is. If only I had realized that sooner. That's the moment that Attack on Titan died for me. I know there's so much to take into account with the series, and again I implore you to share your own thoughts below. I want to hear if you agree or disagree, what parts you do, what parts resonated with you the most, or made you lose interest. This ending has to be one of the most hotly discussed and debated that I've seen, and I just wanted to give a brief walkthrough of the series and give what I think is the day that Attack on Titan died. Thanks for watching, and thanks to my patrons. Friendly Neighbor, Daniel Frousing, My Name is Klein, Jared Summers, Whizbang2093, I Am a Guy, and everyone else who is supported. Sub to my side channel, please. Bye-bye.